I begin recording. I have a few preliminary matters. This is Zoe Burgess, your city clerk. Mayor, may I begin?
Yes, please.
Thank you. This meeting is being held with a quorum of City of Westlake Council physically in attendance at the Westlake Council Chambers, 4005 Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. Mayor Roger Manning, Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson, Councilman Patrick Paul, Councilwoman Kara Crump, Councilman John Paul O'Connor are present physically. City Manager Kenneth Castle, City Attorney Pam Booker, and Planning and Zoning Director Nilsa Zacharias are physically in attendance. City Engineer Suzanne Dombrowski is attending via Communications Media Technology. City Clerk Zoe Burgess is attending via Communications Media Technology. Presenters on the agenda physically present include representatives of S.A. Nelson, the Palm Beach Commission on Ethics, and Lewis Longman and Walker. Presenters, prior to your presentation, please state your name for the record. Allow me to confirm any presenters are present and available to speak that are attending via Communications Media Technology. Mr. John Hearing of Cutler Hearing, are you able to hear us?
I am able to hear you. Thank you very much, Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing. Public comments may be accepted at least 24 hours prior to the meeting utilizing the electronic comment card available on the city's website. Public comments are also permitted at the appropriate time during the meeting. The mayor will call for such during public comment, and you may participate at this time utilizing the system's virtual hand feature and waiting to be acknowledged if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video, and to remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruptions. However, you can unmute yourself. If you are attending via phone and you have been muted, you may press *6 to unmute your telephone. Any person in the virtual meeting causing a disruption or being inappropriate will be removed from the meeting. If I may also remind those physically in attendance, please utilize microphones so that the virtual audience and a clear recording of the meeting is produced. Thank you. Mayor Manning?
Yes, good evening. Call to order the City Council meeting of the City of Westlake. It's Monday, January 11th at 6:35 p.m. Roll call, please.
If I can remind those in attendance virtually, please mute your device.
Zoe, do we have the roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Present.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Present.
Mayor Roger Manning.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, do we have any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Council? No? No? Did you have a motion? Approval?
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve the agenda by Councilwoman Crump, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Councilman Paul?
Just here.
Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Manning?
Here.
Agenda approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, comments and requests. Section comments from the public to speak on item 9 on the agenda. Speaker will give for 3 minutes comment. Public comment. Here and return. The city clerk, once I call the speak, please go to the podium. Prior to addressing the council, state your name and address for the record.
Mayor, we received a previous comment card from Michael Stephanakis. Mr. Stephanakis, if you're on the line.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you so much.
You may proceed.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Stefanakis. I'm a future resident of the city of Westlake. I really want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to future residents and listening to us and hearing us out. My comment is regarding to the grant offered for first-time homebuyers. I was doing my research and due diligence into this grant, and first of all, thank you for having this opportunity for first-time homebuyers. After my research, I realized that a lot of the lot prices in the city for the Minto property in the Sky Cove have really increased throughout the previous years, throughout the last 2 years. And it really makes it affordable or impossible for future residents to take advantage of this grant because a lot of the minimums don't suffice any longer. So I'm reaching out to you to see if there's any possibility of increasing the minimum purchase amount to make it more affordable for first-time home buyers within the city and to really join the community.
We'll certainly take that back to the rest of the city management and see if that's a possibility or not.
Thank you.
Yep.
I received no additional public comment cards, Mayor. However, if we'll give the audience a moment to raise their virtual hand. We have a public comment from Alicia Torres. Ms. Torres, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody, Happy New Year. It's Alicia Torres, 5847 Whippoorwill. I had 3 comments. The first is, I had brought up Mayor Manning before and his communication, and I was thinking instead of just broadly commenting on it, maybe suggesting something more specific. One of the previous cities that I live in does state of the city addresses, I guess you would call it. And I thought that might be something nice to hear from our mayor, including possibly like a transition plan. I know in 2022, it's coming up that he, the vice mayor, and council member Crump are they're up for election. So maybe like a transition plan, and just a state of things from our mayor's perspective might be nice to hear. The second thing I wanted to bring up is I'm really looking forward to the history of Westlake presentation, whatever that is. And I'm hoping that whoever is presenting could address how Westlake got its name. I've been really curious about that and can't seem to get an answer. The third comment is, I just, during this pandemic, curbside delivery has been, utilized a lot. And I just feel like it's here to stay, pandemic or no pandemic. So I was wondering if maybe the city and the charter could, make it, not make it mandatory, but maybe make a request to incoming businesses to set aside some space for, curbside spots on the store side so that employees don't have to cross the street to get to cars. I don't know. It was just an idea. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your service.
Yep.
Mayor, we have a virtual hand from Russell Kelly. Mr. Kelly, if you would unmute your device. Please state your full name and your address. Mr. Kelly, if you would, unmute your device. We may be having technical difficulties on Mr. Kelly's side. Are there any additional public comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Please state your name.
Kelly.
Thank you. And your address.
Thank you. I'm James Russell Kelly. Thank you very much. Future resident at 5551 Starfish Road, Sky Cove. My comment is as follows. We were interested in the HAPPY program, similar to what the first gentleman stated. Due to our family size, we're not able to avail ourselves to the minimum being $350,000. So I'm asking the council to consider raising that limit to $400,000, particularly for future residents who may be acquiring an FHA loan. Residents such as ourselves who have a family size of 5 or greater, many of us are eligible for the HAPPY program. However, we can't fit into the smaller homes like the Lotus and some of the other models. So my request is that that limit be raised, in particular for those people who are applying for FHA or perhaps for anyone, because we need the assistance. My wife and I work for the school district, and we would love to be a part of the community. We plan on coming in any event, but we want to help not just our family, but future families who may be shut out of the opportunity as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. If there are any additional public comments, please state your name and address. If you're on a telephone device, you may press *6 to unmute. Are there any further public comments? Mayor, I see no additional hands.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. This section of the agenda consists of routine administrative items that require final approval by the City Council and may be approved in entirety by a single motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless City Council member requests such, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on future agendas. Okay. Do you have any questions on any one of the items on the consent agenda? Show no comments. Okay. We have a motion for approval.
Are we approving these individually or are we
No,
moving
all
them
together.
I make the motion that we move forward with the approval of the minutes from October 7th, November 2nd, November 30th, December 14th, 2020.
Well, we have all the items.
Consent agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make the motion that we move forward with the approval of all consent minutes.
Yes.
From October 7th, November 2nd, November 30th, and December 14th.
And then we have a financial statement as well.
Okay. I also, including with the approval of financial statement for November 30th. Is that it?
You have a motion?
Okay.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call. Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Manning?
Yes.
Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Consent agenda passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the presentations. Tonight we have a presentation by the history of Westlake by J. Nelson Associates.
Good afternoon or evening. It's Sophia Nelson with S.A. Nelson and Associates. I bring with me today Charisma Adams and Dante Filia. I think that was a misprint because we're not here actually to tell you about the history of wrestling today, as much as we would want. We're actually here to present to you how we're going to go about gathering the history of Westlake to bring it back to your current and future residents. So, I know we didn't plan for it. But no, so it's not the history today. We are, like I said, we're here to just bring it all together and put it in a nice, what we would consider a nice little vacuum for you guys to be able to share, like I said, with all your future residents. Sophia Nelson, S.A. Nelson, is a full-service PR public engagement company right here in Palm Beach County, although we serve the state of Florida and South Florida. We are excited and happy to be a part of this new family of Westlake and to help you guys to present. Now, we know that Westlake, although it's a new city, has a rich history beyond. So one of the themes that we came up with, which Ms. Adams will be able to take you through for our deliverables, is before and beyond. You are an innovative city. You started off with a great idea that is now going to be taken into the future. And so what we'd like to do, Zoe, if you don't mind, you can skip S.A. Nelson and then go to the first part. So our theme for this particular presentation and the presentation moving forward will be called Before and Beyond. So I'll bring up Ms. Adams, who will then walk you through the deliverables.
Thank you.
Good evening. For Before and Beyond, like she said, there are so many seeds that were planted. Like Seminole Improvement District, so much rich history that exists here prior to the inception of the city. So what we want to do is start with a nod back to that, letting future residents know how did the city come to be? What is the history? Telling some of that story. And what we want to do is to interview Mr. Scott Massey to come in and to give us some of that history. We want to present that in visual. It'll be some aerials of what it looked like, what the groves looked like. Some of the things he talked about, I forgot what it's called, gosh, I forgot the area over there with the panels. I forgot what you call it. So anyway, we want to tell those pieces, tell all of that, how it came, and then we want to interview Mr. John Carter to talk about what made Minto excited about this. Where did the idea really come from? Why get this land? What they want to do with it? We want to also interview Mayor Manning and come in and talk about your government and your council, how you govern in this area, letting people know how we're moving along. And then we want to bring in your city manager, Ken Council, to cast vision for the future. Where do you see Westlake going? So the way that we see presenting this is in a video. I mean, if Zoe doesn't mind, she can flip forward a little bit. One slide, two slides, maybe, yes. There we go. We want to record a video, and we want to house the video on the city's website. We can do that on the homepage, or we can create a landing page that will become the hub for this video. Again, the video will be rich photos, it'll be interviews, it'll be voiceovers, it'll be time lapse, a lot of that, just really engaging to tell the story in a very engaging, high visual, way. So we want to house that on the city's website. I need to skip forward one. One more. Then what we want to do is create short links for that video from the website, and that's how we plan to broadcast it out to your current residents, to future residents, and to just curious people as to who are their neighbors over here. So we want to broadcast that out, and one of the ways that we'll do that is through the newsletter. So we will write a press release that will go into the newsletter. We will have short links to the video that they could, read and be able to click and go straight to the video and watch the video. You can slide forward again. Thank you. We'll also utilize social media by creating really engaging content. We'll create a content pack that we will be able to share with your social media team, who will be posting that information on your social media channels. It will include, trivia. Did you know this about Westlake? Q&A. Some aerial still shots of, can you guess what this is? Things like that to engage people and share some of the history in the social media in a way that is engaging to the people that come to your social media platform. You can go to the next slide. We'd also like to mail out postcards to your current residents that include a QR code. So when they get the postcards in the mail, they have the ability to scan the QR code and go straight to the video and also see the video, because one thing we know is that everyone doesn't consume news the same way. So we want to be able to use all of the delivery channels that you have available to you so that we can ensure that we get this video, we get this story out to all of your residents, those who prefer to open up their mail, those who like social media, those who come and peer at your city's website, as well as those who have opted in to receive non-emergency communications via SMS text message. You can go forward one more slide. and that's what we're looking at now. If you have a non-emergency SMS communication tool, we can also send out a short link that people can click on to see the video there. So we want to use all of your available communication tools to get this video out to the individuals. If we choose to embed it on a separate landing page, we could track the analytics and provide a report to the city to show you how many people are interacting with the video and where those people are coming from to interact with the video. So I'll bring back Sophia. She'll talk about the timeline.
All right, so our timeline starts today with this particular presentation, and it moves forward into the interviews, just like Ms. Adams basically said. While we're actually doing the interviews, Dante, our producer, will be here meeting with your residents, your current residents, and also taking aerials and doing all of the things that need to happen. We do have the dates on here. I can't really see them, but of course, we know QI/QC is very important. So everything that we do will be brought back to staff for their review, and then back to the council for your approval, everything that we do. And then after that, we would like to launch this March 15th. So Ms. Torres and the future residents and everyone in attendance, that is when we will be able to unveil to the city council and to the public at large what is and who is the city of Westlake before and beyond.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have any questions, we are here to.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
First of all, I love everything that you guys just said. I think it's incredible. I'm 100% on board. I think it's great. I love it. We do have some we'll call them technology challenged residents. The newsletter, will there be a print version of that as well mailed out?
We can, yes.
I think that'd be
We could definitely put it in print. And like you said, everybody has their phone. So, I mean, we will, if we need to, we will, in the postcards, it will explain how to click the link on from your phone. So, I mean, we'll be able to walk through all of that with the residents.
So I've been using social media as my main format of community outreach.
Right.
It does really well, but my challenge has been those residents who just refuse to go on social media, don't want QR codes. They want to read.
Oh, most definitely. My aunt lives here, and she's on the other side. And she probably is. And she says hello to herself and happy birthday to herself before she's talking to somebody else. So I do understand. So I'm thinking of her in mind when we're talking about how to navigate. So yes, when we're putting this technology together, I would use her as a test person.
I think if we could incorporate a printed version.
Absolutely.
And we can pull from, the press release, we can pull the information. They wouldn't get verbatim everything that's on the video, but we can definitely summarize it and put it in the print format so they can get the story and get the answers to some of those key questions. Yes.
I just have a comment, Ken, thank you for, when we talked to you about this, going with a firm that can actually deliver what we need and what we want. I think council, this was a good decision to go ahead and move forward. This year, right, going into 2021, with the evolution of Westlake, as we heard Ms. Torres say, people want to know, right? And so thank you, team, for a great presentation, a thorough presentation, and we look forward to working with you.
And I do want to say, we definitely, some of the things that Ms. Torres said, we'll put it in our beyond. Yeah, those are good things. You're welcome.
Next, we have a presentation by Mark Udanis from the Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council people, and of course, Ms. Booker and Mr. Castle. Hopefully, I can see this screen because my entire presentation is because what's going to happen tonight is frankly historic. This will be the first time that a new city, assuming that it gets voted in, puts themselves under the Palm Beach County Code of Ethics without having a voter mandate. And that's pretty historic. And I think you do that because you know it's the right thing to do and because we're really out here to help you. That's what we do. We do training to help you. We give advice to help you. Everything we do is to help you avoid violating the Code of Ethics. That's important because our code of ethics is very similar to the Florida code of ethics. So the things we guide you on locally, when we're available and can come out and talk, is something that's important statewide. And as we all know, while we have a punitive section, we've never been much about that. We've given very few fines over the years. The Florida Commission does a lot of fines, but that's how they're set up, and their fines are a lot more significant. But that's never been the way we've done business. Our idea here is to let you ask us before you act and save everybody a lot of aggravation on what has to happen afterwards. Okay, let me go through my introduction. Can I go to the next slide, please? I can't read the names, but those are our 5 commissioners. I have worked at the Commission on Ethics for 10 years. Not all of them were here during that time, but Peter Cruz is our chair all the way on the left. Mike Kreidel is the vice chair. Michael Kugler is a commissioner. Rodney Romano is a former elected official, former mayor of Lake Worth, who's also a commissioner. And Carol DeGraffenite is also on the commission. She works for the Attorney General's office. So she has a lot of interesting stories. Anyway, that's our commission. If we go to the next slide, because I can't read any of that. I'm staying with it. All right. We were created at the same time as the Inspector General, unfortunately created by 2 different teams, because what happened was when the Inspector General's ordinance was written, it included any future cities. So you automatically fell under that. Ours did not have that. And that's why we're here today doing this, and that's why we've been kind of after you guys for the last few years. We have separate jobs. What they look at are contract information, which is important, certainly money, waste, abuse, and fraud, particularly where it costs cities money, and mismanagement of funds. And those are particularly grant funds. As we know, the penny sales tax is a big deal. They're very much involved in making sure that isn't mismanaged. We do different things. We have the ethics complaints. In other words, we have a code of ethics. It's 12 pages long. It's very clear as to what falls within us. Many people think that to use the word ethics means that it automatically falls under us. That's not true. It has to be a violation of one of the sections of the code of ethics for us to be involved. We also give advisory opinions. We've done over 400 in the 10 years we've been around. So trust me, we don't mind writing advisory opinions. That comes about when you ask us specific questions. General questions we can answer. Can I do this? Well, I don't know if you can do it, but this is the general rule on who can do things. But an advisory opinion will be a specific thing you want to do, and we'll write you an opinion as to whether you can or not, and if you can, how you have to do it to stay out of problems. And then, of course, we do training and outreach, which is what I'm doing today. Next slide, please, Zoe. Commission has 5 staff members. We're not as large as the IG, but we're every bit as busy. We have approximately 17,000 people that fall within our jurisdiction, including the advisory board members, elected officials, and, of course, any employee of the cities or the county that fall under us. We also have some jurisdiction over lobbyists and vendors of the county or the various cities. Basically, that's generally the gift law, but in terms of vendors, not always. So we have a lot of jurisdiction over them. I've been here for 10 years. She has been here 3 months longer than me, so we've been around a while. She is also the person who's assigned to this. We have someone assigned to each city so that you have a contact person. And that, of course, is, and I should have introduced her, this is Gina Levesque, our intake and compliance manager. Intake meaning complaints, advisory opinions, things like that, and taking them and giving them to staff who's going to handle them. But also, she handles the compliance. And that, what we're talking about is training compliance. So, under our ordinance, you have to have initial training after you come under us, and when that is depends on what your policy is going to be on it, because it's all based on your own policy. And then you have to have periodic retraining. How often that is absolutely up to the city. We have, in the county, we do it every 3 years. There's at least one city that only does it every 5 years. there is several cities, smaller cities generally, that do it every year because they want to. They want us to come out every year, and that's fine, well, except this year. Nobody's going out to do that stuff this year. Actually, that's not true. We have a training next week. Christy's doing one. First one in about 9 months. So anyway, next slide, please, Lily. Our jurisdiction. We have jurisdiction over every, once you guys sign, every municipal employee, official, or advisory board member, and any county official, employee, or by advisory board member. Thank you. We also, that jurisdiction is based on the Code of Ethics, whether, for the most part, that's really where we have most of our things. But lobbyist registration ordinance is important for you all because I believe, Pam, you guys do not have a lobbyist registration ordinance, is that correct?
No, we do have one. We adopted it very early on.
Okay. Then you won't be falling under our lobbyist registration.
Very similar to the one in Palm County.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask that is because you're one of 4 cities now that have their own lobbyist registration and therefore don't fall under us for issues with lobbyist registration. So for you all, it would just be the Code of Ethics. Jurisdiction over the Code of Ethics really means a lot of things, but basically it means 2. If you get a complaint, there are 2 issues to be resolved immediately. Number 1, is it someone we have jurisdiction over, which we would now over you, but wouldn't have before? Had somebody complained about somebody in Westlake prior to us getting jurisdiction, we wouldn't have taken jurisdiction. The other thing is, if true, is it a violation of one of the sections of the code? And that's important. Next one, Zoe. I keep moving over here because I'm almost to a point where I can see this. There are 12 sections of the code. And I'm not going to go through them, but that's just to tell you how the code is broken up. The most important ones are 2-443, prohibited conduct, and 2-444, gift law. Why are they the most important? Because they're the most often violated, whether violated intentionally or unintentionally. Those are usually where we have the issues. So I will tell you, when you have an issue that you're not sure of, call us. Let us help you. We'll walk you through it. That's what we do. If we can't give you advice because it's specific, we would at least either write you an advisory opinion or we'll point you to one of the advisory opinions we have that might be on point and might apply to your situation. And with over 400, it's likely that we do have it. It's very unlikely to be a new question for us. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through that because you don't have the lobbyist registration ordinance. Also, the post-employment ordinance, I put that on there because sometimes I'm talking to county groups. That only applies to county officials and employees, so that wouldn't matter to you either. Next slide, Zoe. All right. This is our process when we get a complaint. We get a formal complaint, a sworn complaint, or sometimes not even a sworn complaint, because unlike the Florida Commission on Ethics, we can swear out complaints. The Florida Commission on Ethics, if you make a complaint to them, it must be on a sworn affidavit, or they have no right to accept it, because they cannot swear out their own complaints. They're limited in that way. They could up until 1980-something, but that was taken away. We have that power. If you give us enough information, even if you don't swear out a complaint to where we think it's worth looking at, or if there's enough information to show that if it's true there is a violation, then we can swear out our own complaint. That allows us then to do an investigation. So the first thing we look at is what comes in, is it legally sufficient? Again, the same thing. Is it over somebody that we have jurisdiction? And number 2, if it's true, is it a violation of the code? If it isn't, if those things aren't true, then it's not legally sufficient and it's automatically administratively dismissed. Fortunately, about 2-3 years ago, the commission allowed me to dismiss them administratively rather than taking each one of these before them, because they don't have to waste their time to hear things that we have no jurisdiction over. So let's assume it is legally sufficient, or there's enough information where we can look at it to determine legal sufficiency. Sometimes we'll assign that as an inquiry to find out if there's any meat to it. Once we do that, once we do an investigation, it goes before our commission for a probable cause hearing. We had 2 Thursday. One found probable cause, one didn't find probable cause. When they don't find probable cause, that's dismissed. That's the end of the situation. You dismiss that complaint and it goes nowhere. If there is probable cause, then they have to make a decision. They have to we have to set it for a final public hearing, which is before a magistrate most times, but can be before the commission. And during that time, they make a decision. Sometimes we'll come to an agreement and they'll plead. Sometimes we'll find information that shows that it's probably not true and we'll dismiss it. But once the probable cause is found, it gets set for a final hearing. I will tell you that most of the cases we have are dismissed before final hearing. In fact, we have 2 final hearings this month, but we've only had 2 in 10 years up to this point because most people don't want that because it is a public hearing. So they'd rather figure out a way to deal with it outside of that. Once that hearing is set, whether by magistrate or before our commission, they hear the evidence, there are witness testimony, documents presented. It's similar to a court of law, but it's not a court of law. It's like any ordinance enforcement. It's like zoning enforcement is an ordinance enforcement. It's the same situation where a magistrate may hear witnesses and such. Then a decision is made. If the magistrate or the commission decides that there's no violation, then again it gets dismissed, and that's the end of it. If they decide that there is a violation, then they may issue one of several punishments or all of several punishments. They can issue a letter of reprimand. They can issue a fine. If there's something that they need to have returned, they can order them to return funds because they didn't finish something. There are some different things they can do. But anyway, that's the end of the process at that point. There is an appeals process, but that's through the circuit court. So you appeal these decisions if you didn't like them to circuit court. That has not happened yet, but it could be. Next slide, please. I think I've actually gone over this, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We've done over 400 advisory opinions. We've done training sessions for the last 10 years, both in person and online, and we also have a CD floating around. And we're always available should you want to call us. Next slide. I'm going to go over this real briefly. This is what we would, by the way, all of you have books up here with the code. I didn't want to give them to you because it's that time. So they're still in plastic, but I have touched them, so you may want to wipe them down before you use them. The ethics decision tree was something created by our former staff council. And what it is basically, and it's what we use in training, is this is what we'd like you to think about when you've got a situation where you want to take an action, but you're not sure if that action is allowed to be done. The first question you should ask yourself is it legal to do what I want to do? Because if there's a state law saying you can't do it, the discussion's over. We certainly have no right to give you permission to break state law. So that's always the first thing. Is there a state law or even a county or city ordinance that says I can't do this? If it says that, that's the end of the discussion. Does it comply with the Code of Ethics? It's only a 12-page document, but it's got a lot of ins and outs. I'm still learning things about it after 10 years. So ask us. Let us help you through it if you're not sure. That's what we're there for. Whether it be a formal advisory opinion or just a general question, we've got people that will answer that for you. Does it comply with city or county policy? If you're an employee in particular, if it doesn't apply or if it doesn't comply, what you want to do is not comply with your policy, then you can't do it. Because just like we couldn't excuse you from state violations, we can't excuse you from policy. If you're an employee, you have to follow policies. And I'm sure as elected officials, there are certain policies you have to follow. So that's always your next step. Even though it's not against the law and it's not a violation of the Code of Ethics, if your city has a policy saying you can't do it, then you probably can't do it. And the final thing is, and this is the one people miss, could what I want to do cause a problem for my city or everybody else in the office? In other words, is there something that looks bad here? That's always a possibility. We call this the good government standard. It basically means, particularly for elected officials, we're in a glass here and people see what we do. And sometimes when you're allowed to do something, you probably may not be doing it anyway. You shouldn't be doing it. So you have to ask that question. We have put that into our advisory opinions on a couple of occasions. We're not telling you you can't do this because it's not a violation of the code. However, it doesn't look good, and you may want to consider that before you make your decision. And I'll tell you very briefly, there's been on at least a few occasions where people didn't take that advice, which is fine. We can't tell you can't if it's not against the code, but they've ended up reading about themselves in a newspaper. And if you're an elected official particularly, but even if you're a high-ranking employer or employee, that's not a great thing. That's a bad feeling. So while we would leave it up to you, we would hope that you would always remember that. That's always our advice. Think about how this looks, because all of this was created to help us all look better as government workers in front of everybody that we serve. Next slide, Zoe. Advisory opinions, again, I discussed those. Next slide. Okay, we have code enforcement powers, civil enforcement. We are a code enforcement board, which means we can do certain things. We do not have criminal authority. However, and we've had this, in cases where you violate almost all of our code, there are a couple of sections that aren't, but that's not true about that. Almost all of our code, and you do it in such a way that it was clearly intentional and willful, we can send it to the state attorney's office and they can file it, not as a first-degree misdemeanor. They will file it as a code enforcement violation, but a criminal code enforcement violation, which could lead you, if you were convicted of that, with the same sanctions as you would get for first-degree misdemeanor, which is up to a year in jail, county jail, and up to a $1,000 fine for each violation. So just keep that in mind. We haven't done it very often, but we have had to do it on occasion. I hope to never have to do that. Again, clearly, when that happens, it's because you knew the right thing to do and you didn't care when we got to send those things over to them. But sometimes that happens. Last slide, Zoe. And that's our card. We've had that around for a while. That's our email, our hotline, our Facebook, which I understand. Twitter, I don't even know if that's still around after what's happened. So maybe we still have Twitter. I don't know. But if we have it, it'll actually be my general counsel who will answer those because I have no idea how to use Twitter. Does anyone have any questions? You're going to make me put the mask back on already?
Sometimes that's how it goes.
Well, thank you very much for your time, folks. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I couldn't see those things. I actually expected them to be up there.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for your time. Next, we have a presentation by Robert Zippenberger and Ms. Longman on the update on the Indian Trail Improvement litigation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Bob Zippenberger, General Counsel for Seminole Improvement District. We wanted to, and with me today is Tara Dewey from Minto PDLH.
Happy New Year.
We put together a presentation for you jointly. We wanted to just give you a brief update on what's going on with the access litigation. I know you've heard of it, but we realized we've never actually been in front of you talking about it, so we thought we should do that. There are two things we want to talk about. One is where we are from a process point of view, and then I wanted the presentation you have in front of you, and I've given you each a hard copy. We'll talk about the background and sort of the substantive issues that are important to this discussion. From a process point of view, that litigation was filed. We filed it, Sid and Minto jointly filed it in response to Indian Trail's attempt to block Grove Road that goes out east of the Grove on the 140. There is an issue which has been around for a long time about the legal entitlements to access around the Grove. So there's been a live issue for the Indian Trail. I know you have heard statements probably in general communications in the neighborhood out here that there's a private roads that are connected. Obviously, differently about that. From a process point of view, we are moving toward mediation in that litigation. We have a mediation date set for February 3rd. There was some procedural motion practice. We have one combined mediation involving Minto and Sid on one side, Indian Trail on the other. For a while, it looked like there might have to be two separate processes, but we decided. We had a mediator, some of you may know, Fred Missouri, who was a 4th District Court of Appeal judge down here for a long time. Was a long-time judge. Retired and in a mediation practice now. We feel very good. We helpful to have a judge, somebody who's seen a lot over the years, and is not afraid to talk to the parties from the judge's point of view and say, no, you're right here. So we feel good about the mediation. I tend to be optimistic by nature, so I am optimistic about this. We'll see. It will be an opportunity which we haven't had so far, really, to sit down with the other side and talk. For various reasons, that simply hasn't passed. So we really haven't been in the same room with an opportunity to discuss issues. We're looking forward to it. As I said, we'll bring a report. So the page up on the presentation right now is simply our basic position that we've had, Sid has had, since Sid has existed since 1977. We have a mutual right-of-way agreement. I'll talk about that in a minute, which allows us joint access to the joint perimeter with Indian Trail. And the Indian Trail roads are public roads. It's like you drive out of your city into the next city, you don't stop and ask, geez, can I ride on this road? Those are public roads, of course you can ride on. They're built with public money, they're maintained with public money, they're dedicated to the public. That makes them public roads. That's our position. Next slide, please, Zoe. It starts with an agreement that was entered into back in 1966. 1966 was when the Callery folk bought what is now Westlake, was previously Callery Judge Grove, for development as a citrus grove. They bought it from the owner of the land all around it, and at the time that transaction was done, the parties wanted to make sure they could each have access to their respective properties. So they entered into this joint mutual right-of-way agreement, and I've highlighted some of the provisions on here that allow for a mutual non-exclusive right-of-way to get in and out over the lands of the respective parties here too, for the benefit of the parties and anybody who ultimately owns land within those boundaries. So basically, they bought a piece of property that was otherwise landlocked, as you'll see in a minute. And they said, okay, we're going to give ourselves the ability to get in and out along our mutual boundaries. Not remarkable. Very simple proposition. The next slide, please. The area that was described in the right-of-way is essentially a strip 100 feet wide that runs on the common border of what is now Seminole Improvement District Trail. I've highlighted a piece of this. We're going to talk about the 140th piece, but this applies as well to the other common boundaries. Next slide, please. So the deal was done in 1966 to acquire the property. This is an area of what this area looked like in 1964. There was nothing here. There was no acreage. There was no 1 1/4 acre lots of people living out here. There was, just to the south of us, you can see a little bit of agricultural activity associated with growth and some other things. But the then owner of all this land had not yet done anything with it. And we'll talk about what gets done with it in a minute. But as you can see, it was raw land. So they bought, the Callery folk bought what is now Westlake from, it was Indian Trail Ranch. We'll have the deed here. See, if you look on the right-hand side of this page, it's a much broader view than that here. There was nothing here. Next page, please, Zoe. And in 1968, after they had the Grove developed, which is showing you the east end of the Grove, you see that Indian Trail was still at that point in time not developed. So the development activity which led to the creation of the acreage had not yet occurred in this location at that time. Next page, Zoe. This gives you, this graphic just shows you in red the areas that are subject to this right-of-way. So these were the boundaries that were common between the Callery property and the predecessor of the acreage. Next slide, please. Also in 1968, then, the Indian Trail Ranch began to sell property for development as the acreage. This document is one of those deeds. It's from 1968. It's for sections 4 and 9, which are the two sections which abut the road out on the east, which is called Unit 3 of Indian Trail. So at the time, when that property was conveyed, it was conveyed subject to any and all rights of way. Unremarkable proposition, of course. The right of way pre-existed this conveyance. When it conveyed the land was subject to that right of way. The right of way agreement, we go back and look at the table, we see that it includes the western 50 feet of both sections 4 and 9. So when they took sections 4 and 9, to develop the acreage, they took it subject to the right of way. And that is 50, west 50 feet of those two sections was subject to. Next slide, please. And once they took the property in fee and began to develop it for Indian Trail and for sale on 1 1/4 acre lots, they imposed easements on it. That's what this document is here. In 1968, they went about setting this grid pattern of roads that you see in Indian Trail. These roads, this grid pattern of easements was for, and I've highlighted for you, for rights of way, road purposes, in favor of the general public. That's on the face of the instrument. So when they cut up these sections and they put these roads in every this grid pattern, they dedicated all of that for those purposes in favor of the general public. Next slide, please, Lily. And what I'm doing with the next few slides here is just showing you where this right-of-way lays out today on this boundary, these various boundaries we've been talking about. I've highlighted the neutral right-of-way in pink, but you can see in this first graphic, this is out on 140th. You see the Grove Road where it comes out from the top here and about slightly over halfway across the graphic. You see the common property line for Minto and the properties out to the east. You can see those section corners there. And, you know, it makes perfect sense. What they're trying to do. They're just creating a way to get around in and out of the property. The next few pages, Zoe, I think we'll just zip through those. I just show this in various places along 140th, along Sycamore, along Cheatham Hill, and along 50th. And, you know, given where the property came from, that was the common boundary between what was the county and what was Indian Trail. And all of the Indian Trail property, not just the stuff on the east of us, but the stuff south along Sycamore, stuff on the southwest, bounded by 50th and Cheatham Hill, were subjected to the same easements. Basically the same easement pattern they imposed on all of the agencies. So our position is we've got Indian Trail, which exists as a district. It was created in 1957. It has developed these units of development which surround Westlake today. It has created the system of roads. Development of sections dedicated to the general public. They have been constructed and maintained with public funds to take the position of public goods. Why is this important to us? The next slide, please, Zoe. After all of these, page 17. There you go. The reason it's important is because look around. You are otherwise bound without connections out, other than some of the private road, but for these two county thoroughfare roads. As you can see here, I've given you a copy of the county thoroughfare map, which shows the roads that the county intends to use as thoroughfare roads going backwards. So they are 60th and Persimmon. And the next slide, please, Zoe. And this, of course, is your development pattern and how these roads fit. You know, the issue of access is, I would say, it's probably not popular in a lot of people's minds out here. You know, the issue has been around forever. With traffic, though, connectivity, more of it is better than less of it. We've got county thoroughfare roads, you really only got two connections going east. And The position, if they're allowed to take it, that Indian Trail can deny connection to 140 to continue to the east and/or impose conditions upon that access that bear no relationship to the purposes of Indian Trail. It's just anathema to both cities. The way this community has always been, it's with thoroughfare, it's going back east, in addition to the south side. So we felt it important to get a determination of that, since we couldn't get an agreement necessarily from the trail. As I said, I'm optimistic for mediation. And, failing mediation, I'm optimistic that we have to. Any questions?
What are they exactly looking for? What do they want?
Well, honestly, we don't know quite yet. I mean, literally, we have not had a sit down with them to understand that. The position they've taken in the pleadings is, one, a mutual right-of-way agreement really doesn't mean anything because the property on the east is conveyed without not being subject to it. Two, we've got to get a permit to connect to the road. Three, I think they can impose virtually any conditions they want on a permit. Like the county would with an impact fee or proportionate share exaction or something like that. The way you typically look at connection permits for district facilities is you analyze the effect of the connection at the connection. The scope of impact of that connection is involved with where the road connects and how you are connected to it, that you're not harming the facilities of that location. We don't think a special district such as Indian Trail has the ability to say, well, we want to tag you for a piece of maintenance responsibility for the entirety of the Indian Trail road, because you're going to put all this traffic. And then some old cases having to do with special districts and the ability to connect and what you can do that support our position. So we're, as I said, we're optimistic. We don't know. I mean, to answer your question, we are trying to get a clear answer to what you want.
Seems like most of the information when there's litigation like this, they're looking for money in some sort of like, in some way to get their maintenance on the road or something like that. More the road's done. You'd like to know the extent before you get into the.
What's the timeline here? Is it slowed down with COVID, or is it moving through the process pretty quickly?
It's proceeding on a normal pace and posture or something like this.
When do you think we might have results of the mediation?
Well, we'll meet February 3rd. The objective, obviously, always of the mediation is to try to, while you are there, frame out a solution. Now, given that two of the parties to the mediation are public bodies, we obviously have to take whatever can be arrived at back to our board for consideration of the option. So, if it's productive, February 3rd, and presumably, hopefully, we get through meetings in February, March with the boards.
February 3rd is a key date.
Well, yeah, it is the mediation. We are fortunate, I guess, in that we are not hard pressed right now to make that percentage connection. So there's, I won't say there's no urgency, but it's not actually critical. We can proceed through what would be a normal litigation case.
I have a question that probably is more for the tour. Unless I'm completely wrong, I would say there are passages in the land development order that would prohibit into the further extent the development of the city unless certain rules are correct. Is that correct?
We have a requirement to connect those two roads because, as Mr. Dissenberger pointed out, those are county thoroughfare roads. And when this project, we have been through many iterations of this project, both with Pinto and the prior property owner. There was a time when the county requested us to connect in far more different locations than just those two eastern thoroughfare roads. So to those key roads. So our current development order does require us to connect to 60th and Persimmon. 60th isn't as big of an issue because there's an existing connection there for the school, but Persimmon is the real issue. The funny part about that is we wanted to have that as an open condition to connect. At the actual day of the hearing, Indian Trail representative stood up and requested that it's not be connected any sooner than, and I think it's somewhere in the 3,000 building permit, so far down the pipe, pursuant to the existing development order, whether or not it's warranted to be at that late stage in the game. So yes, we're, obviously it's in the benefit of the city, in the benefit of the future residents to have more connectivity, and frankly, I think a lot of the residents in that area would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to reach Seminole High School, Summerridge High School, and some of the amenities that are being developed in the city a little bit more easily than they currently are able to do with the grid network, which looks connected, but when you think about all the canals that are interrupting the connectivity, it makes it very difficult. And especially with the ER that has been built here, one of the studies we did when we were doing this approval was on travel time to the closest hospital. And at the time, the Westlake ER wasn't there. But even now, those residents who are all the way over there are going to have to drive all the way to Pratt way. So it's really in the best interest of the overall community. And the county, another fact from history, we did all through the process try to sit down with the needs to discuss this. They weren't interested. The board at the time wasn't interested in discussing that connectivity and wanted to oppose it. And the county had said previously, look, these are important roads. If we need to take them over for maintenance, we can do that. We've done it on other of your roads. We'll do it here too. So it's a little bit of a red herring to say that they have to be able to burden those roads when the county is as equally interested in that connectivity as we are.
So once we approach the 3,000 range of houses, I guess all will come to a halt if we're not coming to an agreement with.
Well, that would be, I would expect we would come to you and ask you to amend our development order, but that would be up to you at the time, because that's obviously in your jurisdiction. We're well ahead of that game, to Bob's point. We knew this was coming. It's been, their position has been made clear to us very clearly since the beginning of time. So I think we have enough time to bridge that gap well in advance of us hitting that development order condition.
Do we have any idea about 60 years, the build out of 60 years? And I know it's a 5-year plan or whatever. Are we any closer there to?
60th is not actually required by our development because we did Town Center Parkway. So when we can connect up to that point whenever it is that it makes sense for us to get there, so there's not the same sort of stopgap there. We are in the process and literally in the final throes. Seminole Improvement District, Minto, and the county are entering into an agreement to dedicate the rest of 60th along the northern border. I believe it's been approved by SID. Minto's just got to do some final review of it, and then it's going to go for the county for adoption. I don't think the construction is imminent. It hasn't been placed on a 5-year plan by the county. And again, that's not a Minto condition of requirement to build or construct that road. That's a county road. But I know they're interested in doing that.
Just the connection doesn't do as much good.
Right. So when we get to that point where it makes sense to, when we hit developments that are over there, we can go ahead and connect up to the portion that's already there. So I don't think that'll be as big of an issue. Who knows? I can say that now, but something may erupt from the Indian Trail side to try to combat that when it occurs.
This litigation is actually not with the city itself, right? Just with Seminole Improvement District and Minto. But obviously, us being partners, at some point, we become part of it, I'm sure. Absolutely. If need be. Absolutely. Our standing is obviously that we have a requirement to make those connections in the development. SID is the predecessor and interest to that mutual right of way agreement. And then obviously the city's interest is having connectivity to the network and the greater county network. So certainly
we would be happily keep you posted and entertain your involvement if that's necessary. But we'll be optimistic that we can resolve mediation, maybe put a line of prevail, we can come to some agreement on how to make this work for everybody.
Any other questions?
My only thought is just for general safety of the city in the event of, say, an evacuation. The more ways we have out, the better.
Well, thank you for sharing that information. It's nice to hear what's going on.
Thank you so much.
We'll move forward with the public hearing. And we'll start with resolution 2020-01, final plat for town center Parkway Southwest.
Suzanne, you want to speak on this, or you want me to take it? Mayor and council, what's before you is the plat for the Town Center Parkway Southwest. It's the section that's going to be on the north side of the Publix plat, and then also extends over to the north part of 5G, which you've also been looking at. It has been reviewed by engineering with recommended approval. The plat was approved by Seminole Improvement District this afternoon at the 4 o'clock meeting. So both entities will have reviewed it by the engineers and staff and recommended approval.
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution.
Well, Zoe, could you read that by title, please?
Yes. Resolution 2020-01, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Town Center Parkway Southwest, being a portion of Section 1, Township 43 South, Range 40 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing for recordation, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments regarding this motion? Regarding this resolution? Showing up? We have a motion.
All right. I will make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-01, final plat on the Parkway Southwest.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
If I can just remind council to please speak louder with the mask on. Thank you.
Louder into the
Can
mic.
we get more volume on?
She picks up on these mics as well. So we can
Can we get more volume? Also.
looks like we lost it.
You guys don't break and touch anything.
No, it's not on mute. It's not picking up picking up here instead of somehow I lost the jobber speaker. How about now?
That's good. Thank you.
There we go. Nice.
Look at my technical ability, I'm plug and plug.
At least you did it, I wouldn't. Okay, we'll move on to item B, which is Resolution 2020-02, and that's the final plat, 5G Southwest.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is, as we've talked before, this is the pod, the section of land to the west of the public site that's already been platted. It takes into account the off-site storage and drainage conveyance as well as platting that parcel for future development. This all ties into drainage and availability as well as it tying into the Town Center Parkway Southwest drainage structures which convey all the stormwater off of the public site.
And I see
it
we have approval.
was approved by SID, yes.
By SID,
Yes.
Also. Zoe, could you read this by title, please? 2020-202.
Yes, Mayor. Resolution 2020-02, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Pod G Southwest, being a portion of Section 1, Township 43 South, Range 40 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, being in part a replat of a portion of Tract M3 as shown on the plat of Persimmon Boulevard West, replat plat book 129, pages 129 and 130, Public Records of Palm Beach County, Florida.
Do you have any questions, comments on this resolution?
Possibly. You know, there's a typo on the agenda. I'm just trying to make sure it's the actual resolution. It's correct on the resolution. We had 2020 on the agenda. That's all I'm sorry. We're going to have the wrong one.
Okay, motion to approve 2020-02.
2021.
2020, well, yeah.
That's why I said I saw it on the agenda, but on the resolution, I wanted to double check.
Yeah, that's right.
On the header of the resolution, it is resolution 2021-02.
Right on.
Previous resolution is the same. And it's also the same thing. There's language in here for council here. We discussed the correct description error, but it was picked up and changed to 2021-02.
So we have a motion by Councilman Paul.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion made by Councilman Paul, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call. Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. This has to do with A, Westlake City Hall closures. Administration.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is resolution 2021-04. This year, we're naming the actual dates. Probably going forward, we'll look at changing the resolution to name the days, because since the days change, it's a pain to try to keep track of which day it actually falls on. Probably next year, we'll put into the resolution that it is the Hope Day, whether it falls in accordance with the federal day, whether it's a Monday or observed on a Friday or a Monday. That way, we're not having to try to juggle dates, and if we miss a date, it gets messed up. So we'll be making that modification for next year, but this year we use the dates.
Zoe, can you read by title, please?
Resolution 2021-04, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, designating days wherein the City of Westlake will not be open for normal business hours.
Motion?
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-04. I'll second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Crump, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul,
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump,
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, we move on to new business. Non-ad valorem assessment, interlocal agreement between the city and Gannon as constitutional tax collector for Palm Beach County.
Yes, Mayor, Council, again, this is one of the next steps on the flood waste assessment process that we need to close the loop. We've done the first part with the tax collector. This is the, I should say the property appraiser side. This is the tax collector side, letting them know that we're going to be putting it on the tax bill. So this closes the final loop. This is the final process that we go forward with, and go forward with this. We won't have to do it again, I don't believe. As long as we don't change it significantly, it just rolls over every year. Sometimes there's a statement every year that you have to sign to say we're going to continue, but typically, once this is done, we're done.
Is there some kind of resolution, or what is it?
We just motion to execute the interlocal agreement, authorize the manager to sign it, and go forward.
We need to read that by title?
No, I just approve the motion to approve the interlocal agreement.
Great, I'll go ahead and make that
manager
motion.
to execute.
I'll go ahead and make that motion to execute the interlocal agreement. B, on new business. Interlocal agreement with the Palm Beach County. That's good. That's lovely.
Okay.
I have a motion made by Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Councilman Paul,
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump,
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
I've got the finance stuff.
Last one, we execute that and send it all. And then the next is we have to, within a certain time frame prior to the property appraiser and the tax notices go out, I think it's in May, it has to be by May or June, we have to provide them with the actual number and the assessment roll so that goes out by that point in time. And one of the things that we're doing is administratively our cycle of when we're cutting people, I won't say cutting people off, but including that in their closing has changed so that we make sure that if they're closing after a certain time frame, they're still actually paying for the next year so that we're not having to do any direct bills, that we've collected it up front at the time of closing so that everybody will be paid, and then the next time they see it will be on their tax bill when they hit the whole tax roll. That way we're not playing catch up, 100 questions, and a lot of stress and aggravation for the staff.
Yeah, well, administrative work taken out.
Exactly.
Good. Yeah. Very good.
Mayor, one additional thing on that, what Mr. Castle was alluding to is when you get close to budget time, there is an actual mail notice the first time you put this on the roll that will be required to go to every one of the property owners. So that letter will go out in addition to all the other steps we have in place currently.
Thank you. Item B, interlocal agreement with Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics.
This is just a follow-up. This is actually a formal agreement to the presentation that Mr. Banning gave previously. And so we recommend approval of entering into this agreement with the Commission on Ethics, and the city of Westlake will be under the jurisdiction in court.
I'd like to make a motion that the city enters into an interlocal agreement with the Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics.
I'll second it.
I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson, seconded by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call. Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manning. Item C, discussion regarding 2021 legislative priorities.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. What you have in your agenda, one of the things that you put this on for was, as the legislature is starting to come up, there's a number of things that sometimes we get calls for. They want to know what your hot buttons are. Some always it's home rule, trying to make sure that the state does not supersede the local government's ability to control their planning, zoning, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the other items that are listed on the Florida League's legislative agenda is one of them that's pretty important is alternative water uses, utilizing reuse, being able to use reuse, being able to demand reuse as being operated is a good one that's always there because water continues to be a touchy subject, shall we say. So those are the things, and really it's kind of getting back to what are your hot topics, just get a feel for, so that we can put back forth to the delegation and any calls that we get, say, here's our top three from my council. You know, whether they contact myself or the city clerk or the city attorney, you know, we can say, here's the top three that are our hot spots, or the top four. So we're just kind of looking for those kind of items that you all believe we up on and
Is it up for discussion?
yes, up for discussion. This is really to look for where y'all coming from, what do you think of the important ones? We can make a quick list of it and say, hey, here's our list of our priorities from our city council. It's no real formal action, it's just here's where our hot spots
So
are.
you get a
Consensus of where you all are at. Correct.
City Hall, I think is a big one.
Well,
It is.
It certainly is one that's related to this.
This is for state legislative actions and stuff that are coming up. In other words, for example,
Short-term rental.
they were doing some things last year, the year before, on short-term vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Trying to take that approval process away from the local cities, the local levels and stuff like that. So those kind of issues, again, water use, reuse, zoning authorities, those kind of things are what we're looking for is what may be your hot. But if you don't have any at this point in time, that's fine too. But if you have one, that's great. We just kind of want to get a flavor so that when we get a call or if we see something popping up that they're talking about, we can send off an email or something or contact our representative and say, hey, my city council totally against this. Yeah. I'm totally for it.
I would like for when talking to those representatives, even council, if we participate in Palm Beach County Days at the Capitol or Legislative Action Days, for us to focus on affordable housing. We heard the future resident stating about affordable housing, and I know that there are some municipalities that tap into those Sadowski funds. So as we're going back and we can direct staff to kind of look at some of those implementation programs. So I would say affordable housing, short-term rentals, definitely. Last year when they talked about at Palm Beach County Day and Legislative Action Days, how you have individuals that purchase homes, but they don't live in them. And so then it affects the neighborhoods and things of that nature. So I would definitely think we should look at short-term rentals and then the discharge of the reusable water. I know they were saying 2024 city management council that would go into effect. And I know when you spoke with a senator, you mentioned about COVID as it relates to reusable water and the flushing of it.
Correct. Exactly, because one of the studies that they're doing in Howard County and Dade County is they're tracking the COVID virus and wastewater system.
Right. They're doing it right here in Delaware.
And they're tracking to see where what your volumes are, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that wastewater is then treated, and et cetera, and that becomes your reuse water. So therefore, there is some concerns, I'm sure, that haven't been brought yet, that will probably be coming forth from the whole wastewater treatment reuse processes to make sure that we're not now redistributing potentially the virus back out in our irrigation system.
So I definitely, especially with 2024 coming so quickly, that would be one of those are top three. But of course we can circle around, out of the 5 that are here. But I think those probably for me would be the top 3 that's most effective and what we'll be going through now in the city.
That's true. But short-term rental is absolutely key. I mean, we have a lot of issues with that. If they don't respect the property, that's keeping these owners in trouble with neighbors. There's even homes in Westlake now that they're experiencing that. Maybe not so much on the short-term side, but
well, I would concur with the vice mayor on the priority wise, exactly the same. Affordable housing, and then the discharge surface water, or short-term rental and discharge surface water. We're the surface water here, ours is reclaimed here in the city, right?
Correct.
And there's no treatment to that, and then it goes back through the system in irrigation so on. Is there no treatment at all?
The water.
Can you really tell us how that works, that system?
Get it squared away here. The reused water is wastewater that has been treated. It is gone through the digestion process, the treatment process, and it's at the point where they can either inject it in deep wells or put it into irrigation areas, non-public. What they then do is take that water and additionally treat it higher. In most cases, it's treated with chlorine and other products. In a lot of cases, that reused water is actually cleaner than the water that they start with to make your regular water. But because of the processes that they're using, it cannot be reintroduced to the drinking water side of the equation. But it is clean enough and certified for use for irrigation purposes. That's also why your pipes for reuse are purple versus white. You know that that's reused water. The question and concerns are, where is that going to go as we continue in the future? Where is it going to go as related now to, the COVID virus that you're finding in the wastewater, et cetera, et cetera? Is it being totally eliminated, et cetera? So those are things, samples that they're doing in the wastewater industry, checking out to make sure that what we use and reuse is safe for the public, safe for utilization.
Is that water being reused now, like currently?
I have to check with the county. I'm sure we're probably getting the water we're getting now is probably from current municipal. They process millions of gallons a day.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the reuse that we are currently using is probably out of that process. What I'll do is I'll reach out to Palm Beach County Water Utilities through SID and find out what they're sampling, what their samples are showing on the reuse water. That way we can report back to the public.
Another question. That you reuse water, is that billed at the same rate as the drinking water?
No. Two different ways. And the system was designed that way.
You pretty much only have reuse for what, irrigation?
Reuse for irrigation.
That's it.
Yes. Now, one of the things that's a background, one of the things that SID, when they did their conversion, they also have within their system the ability to draw surface water and reduce it if necessary. So that becomes a potential, if the reuse becomes problematic. SID does have the ability to use surface water and inject surface water into the irrigation system.
Which means taking out of one of the canals?
Yeah, it comes out of the M2. And then it gets treated, it's induced with chlorine and stuff like that, and we can contaminate it, but basically treated so that it can go through the system. But that's one of the things, because The improvement district comes after FPL. FPL gets the first quantity of water. Then we come in line next. So if there's not enough water to take care of FPL's lines and what they're doing out at the power plant, then we get cut off. We can't get any use. That's why SID did an underground system to draw surface water in that. And SID is in the process of working on an expansion of the facility now for currently only at 500,000 gallons. We're using about 400,000 gallons a day. So it's cycling pretty quick. Yeah. But with the anticipated growth, SID is in the process of designing and building an additional 2 million gallon tank that will take the total reuse or irrigation system for the entire city.
I didn't realize that FPL used recycled water. They use a lot of water in the solar?
No, but it's out for the power plant at the 20 Mile Bend.
Oh, okay.
That's for their primary water usage in the coolant system. They use that. Matter of fact, the line when it was put in originally was primarily for FPL, but when they crossed the SID M2 canal, SID cut a deal to get plugged into that for future use. And that was back in the late 80s.
Have they had to execute that redundant system recently?
Not recently. When we were first getting cranked up with working with FPL, Palm Beach County Water Utilities and stuff, there were some days that they used a redundant facility.
In the last 2 years?
No, not recently. It's there. We check it. They check to make sure it's operational. The intent is to not have to use it if you don't have to.
As long as you're on the subject, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to speak about this or not, but let me ask. We had inquiries about the Happy program for being able to raise that dollar amount. And we had some conversation now about that, considering we have affordable housing #1 here on our priority list.
Sure, I would like to probably have conversations with the city manager and bring it back to you with a little bit more of a report for the council. Just a couple of things I would share with you, though, is the current median area sales price is at $331,888 for Palm Beach County. We've always been higher than that rate since the program was implemented, but probably better if we put some thoughts together and come back with you for some recommendations on what that should look like for the city.
Okay, I think we've done we've tracked all of them. We know what everybody has come in at. The ones we've had to turn down, we know what the overages have been. So we'll do some additional analysis. But as far as affordable housing, also one of the things that's coming in February meeting, M2.
February and March.
February and March. M2 is coming in with townhomes. It's 180 something or 200 something townhomes. 130 townhomes that are coming in.
Yeah, price point on those yet?
My understanding is they're going to be very reasonable. I don't remember the exact number that was quoted to me, but they're going to be very reasonable.
Clearly under the existing 250 habitat.
Way up.
So there'll be additional information for the council to take into consideration. The down payment assistance may not apply for everyone who wants the larger homes, like the speaker spoke this evening of 4 or 5 bedroom homes with his family, but those funds may be able to be utilized for the townhome product that is coming in. And the program was set up to be needs-based, so if those who needed it, and that is where you have those income caps as well as the purchase price cap. So we'll give you additional information on that at the next meeting, so you can make some decisions.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to know.
Trust me, it broke my heart on several of them. When this person came in at, it was $1,500 over, it was $2,200 over. It killed me to be able to say, no, I can't do it because we're capped. Yeah. So, I do believe we need to do something, but at the same time, I'm not we're a proponent that we need to use the dollars that we have to get people in homes, but we need to use them judiciously. There are people that really is a need-based situation, and we may need to look at crafting it not only need-based, but family size, a whole bunch of things. We may want to expand as to what our requirement parameters are. I'm just throwing things out. I don't know where we'll go with it, but I think we'll be looking at all those type of things to say really where is the need, what need do we really done. We'll be bringing that back to you to fine tune.
Look forward to hearing from you on that.
So I really look forward to hearing the ones that barely missed it. Say it's $5,000 or so, or $7,500 or so. Nothing really pulling that.
We got all that in a spreadsheet. Does anyone else have any feelings on these on the priorities?
So I just agree with that. Affordable housing, short-term rental, discharge for life.
Okay. Anybody would like to say? Yeah, that's in the air. Think on that. Okay, then moving on to city council comments. Start out with Councilman Connor.
I'll be very brief. Just wanted to say how great it was to hear so much participation, from our constituents. There's a lot of participation today. I think that's wonderful. Really, really pleased to hear that finally we've done all the steps to get my trash on the tax roll and our trash on the tax roll, and we won't be getting direct food moving forward because I gave several residents my word that this would be taken care of, and now it finally is. And I want to wish all my colleagues a happy new year. Let's get the ground running this year. Thank you.
Councilman Crowe.
I don't have any comments.
Councilman Paul.
For one, with all these the elections, the president, it just recently occurred to me that there's not a picture of the president. I don't know if that's anybody feel that way, but personally, I think that picture of president hanging there. That's one thing. The current events that took place in other places put me personally in a really bad mental state of mind. However, on a positive note, if you pay attention to what unfolded or whatnot, there was a great deal to be learned what it's about. It actually laws, constitution, and so on. And at the end, it leaves you with the fact that the people that developed the Constitution, the founding fathers, done a job beyond belief. To know and to see that saw the various attempts to change elections and whatnot, and it all held up because they put so many fail-safes in, had the foresight to do so. To me, it's really remarkable. It leads me to believe that we're still living in the greatest country there is. Just thought I'd take it up.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's fair.
I won't be long with my comments. I would like to, I know we talked about adding constituents to the planning and zoning board, so I'd like to give directions to staff to advertise that for interested candidates. And if the council, I know at one time when we had the education advisory board, we kind of went back and forth with the amount of time allocated for advertisement. So we can talk about that at this point. I think maybe 2.5 weeks is long enough. I'm not sure where everyone else is, if you want to see 3 weeks, but just the advertising of it so we can get the applications in for us to review, because I'm sure people are going to want to serve, right? But if we could do that at 2.5 weeks, I think is a fair amount of time. However, someone may feel like they want it at 3 weeks. But just so we can move forward, I think that if we need to go ahead, as you just said, kind of getting things rolling, but add someone to that planning and zoning board. I'm not sure.
So what you're suggesting is the same format with the application and a brief summary of who you are, why you want to serve, et cetera, on that.
Yeah.
Then that would come back to the council, and the council would prioritize, and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the same.
Okay. All right, work with, city clerk and we'll get this set up, squared away and go forward.
Right. And I do know, from meeting with a couple of constituents, and this very well may be premature, however, do we have in our interlocal or comp plan, art in public places?
No, we don't.
So is it possible that, and it, of course, like I said, it's premature, but is it possible that we can go back and maybe look at art in public places, to add into the interlocal or the comp plan, and then the next step, of course, would be to have an advisory board for them, and that could probably be somewhere 2022, but at least now start going back in that interlocal and adding art in public places. I know your municipalities, I think, normally has like 1%. There's a percentage that municipalities have, and I know we're brand new, so of course it didn't make sense at the time, but now as we're moving forward, and the art in public places, like when you go downtown West Palm Beach, you have the art on the buildings and things of that nature. But several of the constituents brought that up about having art in public places, and I know municipalities have that in their interlocal should you want to implement that in your city. And so I would hate for us not to have that. I think it's better to have it than not have it. In the event, whomever, we won't be here forever, but if some of those council people want to add, or residents want to have art in public places here, and I think NILSA can speak, of course, or the attorney can speak to that, but, you know, municipalities have certain percentages of it, but I think we need to kind of be forward thinking of having that in there.
In other municipalities have a program in public places. For example, Palm Beach Gardens, the reason that in PGA the Commons is so successful is because actually has a number of art sculptures or paintings, you know. So also West Palm Beach, City of Lake Worth Beach, Delray Beach, definitely. So a number of very good municipalities, they do have that program.
Yeah. So I would love for us to, we can start looking at that, and then, like I said, in maybe 2022, have a cultural advisory board where they can work on that and talk about that. Also, one more I would like to, I know we talked about at the last meeting, I thought we won't bring it up, but I'll bring it up, we can move forward with it. The direction for staff, for a community advisory committee that we talked about. Councilman O'Connor could, spearhead, but so we could go ahead and move forward with the direction of a community advisory committee, so that people feel the buy-in and that their voices are heard for what is happening in the city and the buildings. Like, for example, we had ongoing conversation with public, right? So you'd be able to, you know, if you could get that advisory committee going, I think that would be perfect.
Just so you don't waste a lot of time on it. Similar setup, 3 members, 5 members, what's your choice, so we can start framing the right thing.
And similar to the youth advisory board. Yeah, we'll take the same makeup, same process.
Make sure you're all for it. We're getting the direction from the general counsel, so we can make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. We call it a community outreach advisory board. What do we want to actually call it?
Y'all think of some names. We'll kick some names around and then come up with a name.
And I guess the same amount of time I met.
Yeah, and on that note, I recall with the youth advisory board, we actually went back and gave more time. So I'm a component of more time than less. So
we could take this instead of trying to jam it on in February, we can take it to March or April.
Okay.
That would give enough time to get it out for people to think about it, to understand what it's about, and then come back and be able to give you all time to look at them and then whittle them down and say, okay, well, this is the batch we want to do.
3 weeks for that one, but for the planning and zoning,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
talked
we-
about it for so long now.
B and Z will be a fast track, and the other one will be
Yeah.
further along.
That's all my comments.
I'd like to, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Castle for the annual department report. I'd like to, it's interesting to see what's happened, been accomplished over the last year. Things are, while the country's been depressed and a lot of places have been hurting, the city of Westlake has done very well. Due to the efforts of all the staff. Thank you, Rosa, and the engineering department, and everybody that's on the staff of the city. Katrina, Vice Mayor, thank you for putting together the presentation at Joe DiMaggio and all your work during the holidays. It was very nice to see that. I looked at the video that the students at Seminole Ridge did about the city of Westlake, and that was very interesting, and they did a tremendous job. The proof in the pudding here, email from Mr. Carter, that Westlake was 17th in master plan communities in the country. Number one, the villages, another Florida community. So kudos to the city and for making that possible. Everybody. I received, I'm sure everybody received the presentation that Bill's put together of the property, the parks and recreation facilities in other cities. I would like to have this as some sort of a formal presentation, other than just if you could kind of
together we can do that
publicly, not tonight.
No, we'll put it together probably for the March meeting.
Terrific. Thank you. I'll go back other than this being a comment and a question. What's going on with Grove Marketplace? Oh, you're going to bring that. Hold it.
Don't steal my thunder. Come on, Mayor.
I'm not going to do you that. I'll stop right there on that one. I'm finished. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Okay. Staff report, fire rescue, the report's in your packet, and
you received the PD as a separate thing. And those the ones that aren't counted on there, Councilman O'Connor asked me to ask the lieutenant what that means. It means wellness checks or business checks. That doesn't include those kind of service calls. That's what that acronym is they wrote down there is.
And it's 1061.
Does not include 1061, which is business checks, door checks, wellness checks, that type of things.
Thank you.
You have a report in your packet for activities that took place last month. If anyone has any questions, please follow up. Let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. In regards to the Indian Trails Improvement District litigation, I have communicated with Mr. Dissenberger on that. If they feel there's a need for the city to intervene in that litigation, the city will intervene in that litigation. We would like to avoid those litigation So we'll wait and see what happens as a result of the mediation and follow up with the report. In terms of the legislative priorities, list and housing affordability, the Airbnb, the rentals, that is an important issue for the city, but I would just remind everyone that the HOA rules prohibit that on short-term rental. So if there are any issues in the community that be brought up to their attention, that is prohibited. So the city has a little bit more protection than other municipalities may here in Palm Beach County because of the way it is developed, but still an important issue to address. So it doesn't create problems for us. And that's it.
Well, Councilman O'Connor, were you aware that the short-term rentals are not allowed?
I was aware, and like I said, it wasn't so much the short-term rental, and it is completely an HOA issue. But the problem is some rentals aren't being exchanged. Right. Absentee owners is it, and the rentals aren't really being cared for and respected and being respected to their neighbors. But I know that other HOAs have rules in terms of you can only rent it once per annum. So if they rent someone and the person leaves, they're not allowed to rent again for the following year. I don't know.
That's an HOA. That's an HOA issue. The city's not involved in that. It's strictly an HOA control item.
Mr. Council.
Well, I guess I better start off with the marketplace first.
You don't have to.
Well, it's probably better that we did. We did have a meeting with the owners and the management company of the Grove Marketplace today. They are going to be doing they do have a major new tenant coming in to take up the main 50,000 square foot box again. And they will be doing, as part of that, as part of their contract agreement with that entity that's coming in, is doing going to be putting a new roof on the entire plaza. They're going to be doing a bunch of painting. They're doing a bunch of some landscape cleanup. They're going to resurface the entire parking lot. They're going to be taking care of a number of easements that they have with the Seminole Improvement District that go through or are half under a building that need to be released. So we're going to be working on cleaning up all the latent legacy issues and trying to make sure that that project comes in. Their timeline is they want to get this done quickly. However, we haven't seen any concrete drawings yet, but this is the first redevelopment, shall we say. And it does bode well if they come in and do a good job on it for all of us to help bring them up to today's standards and stuff. They will be coming in with a master sign plan package as well, with their monument signs updating and correcting a number of issues and stuff. There is one parcel that I know we talked about a year and a half ago, a little corner out piece where they were trying to stick the Taco Bell. They do not own that. It's still owned by somebody else, so I don't know what they're ever going to figure out how to put something in here because it is a very, very, very constrained site. They do have some other ideas of potential future development of changing things, but we will be monitoring, staff will be monitoring the parking lot requirements, parking requirements, ingress, egress. Because one of the things that, at least from my perspective as the manager, I don't want to have us as staff recommend you all approving something that is going to create a nightmare, traffic jam, end up actually killing the whole site. Because all of us have experienced that where you get certain businesses and stuff you can't get in and get out of, or you get in there as a nightmare to get back out, they die. They don't survive. So from my perspective, I want every business out here to survive that crazy. because it's good for not only the tax base, it's good for the residents because they're not having to drive 15 miles to get a haircut or to get nails done, et cetera, et cetera. So that's coming.
Excuse me, they didn't disclose who their tenant was, did they?
They did and they didn't. They did, but they asked us to keep it under wraps, but it is public out there in the public. But it is, it's up to you.
I asked.
No, I think a professional courtesy that they've made the request, we should not disclose that publicly in good faith of working with the applicant. If someone wanted to dig, they can go dig and find it, and we not disclose or do that request to maintain confidentiality until they actually submit the application.
Once they come in the door with the permit applications, then it is public knowledge and we can.
Okay. How many tenants that are in there now?
Well, the main box of where the old Dixie used to be, that main box is 50,000 square feet. So they found a new tenant for that whole 50,000 square feet. Plus they have some other things going on that some of their other tenants may rearrange spaces. They may lose a couple of the tenants because of the rearranged spaces, stuff like that. So there is a number of things that are happening within that whole plaza. But it will get a complete, basically a paint, fresh facelift.
That property is a lot more valuable right now than it was 5 to 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Considerably.
I put before you, I got in this afternoon, the mayor and I received from FBL, it's before you, is the proposed 2020 through 2022 through 2025 rate structure information that FBL put out. It was sent to the mayor and myself. I gave it to all of you through to kind of get a feel for where FBL is going and the rate structures and stuff like that. This was an FYI. The improvement district is still working. They have not started the crossing with the culvert. There's conflict with FPL main feed to the transmission line that they're working out details. Hopefully by the end of this week that'll be solved, and then they can begin to do a directional bore and reconnect so that they can get that project now. We are still working with FPU on the franchise agreement. Because we're uniquely different, it creates some new opportunities for FPU, for us, because typically, the bottom line is typically if you pay a franchise agreement, they don't pay permit fees. But since the permit fees are actually a single improvement district, we have to work out, if they get their fees for permit reviews and inspections, et cetera, they don't want to pay permit fees and franchise fees. So city attorney Diffenderfer, and I are working through those issues to make sure that they're happy. I shouldn't say happy. They're okay. We're okay, and Sid's okay. So it's again that unity that we have to make sure that everybody's still covered, but yet things happen effectively.
Just you mentioned FPU. How are they coming with gas line?
Last I heard, they're still waiting to get approvals to come up similar Pratt. Some of it is Indian Trails approvals, some of it is county. Because every canal that Indian Trails has an outfall that goes across Similar Pratt, where they have to go under, they have to get their approval. Last time, when they were coming down Arlena, it took them 5 months get approval for that. They kept kicking them off their agenda and stuff like that. So that is a process. As far as once they hit Sycamore, coming north, Sid and us, we're good. And them building their repump station. They've already carved out a piece of land over with the developer who on the basically catty corner from us, just north of the high school on the canal there, is where they'll put their depressurization station. So, those kind of things, once they hit our boundary, they're pretty much set in stone already, but it's getting to us. It's in the fall. We're all the way up to Harlina right now, but now getting from Harlina to Sycamore is the issue. Did mention crossings, townhomes are coming. They'll be in the March meeting, the plaque, and they'll be pushing those pretty hard as well. And the last thing is working with the developer and the county on C2. And between the developer and SID, they have agreed to reshape the lake so that they do have that interconnection between it, so that the county is okay with taking on that particular C2. And also we're working with them as far as the layout on their fueling station being out on the west side of the lake, so that all those issues are pretty much to bed. Now we're going to finalize it with the land redone, and then Minto can go ahead and get C2 transferred over to the county, even though we have, because of the tolling, et cetera, but what's going on, requirement to transfer. I'd like to get it off my plate. I'm sure Mr. Carter would like to get it off his plate. I'm sure the county would like to make sure that they've got title to it, so that then they can start their plan. Again, Happy New Year to all of you. As I see us so far, Roses starting 9 a week, and there's no let up. Very labeling company are already sold out of Sky Cove 1. We're going to be releasing Sky Cove 2 South, Sky Cove South. Probably by the end of the month, first part of the next month. They're going like crazy. And even Crestwind is starting to pick up because their season's starting to come. So there's no slowing down for us.
The property in the southwest corner, east corner, excuse me,
Silver Lakes.
Silver Lakes. Is you hear anything about what's going on with that? If Pulte is going to be.
That's a Pulte. They're still in their due diligence stage. Once after their initial contact with us and information, we haven't seen any submittals or any concepts or had any re-engagement with them. So I don't know where they are. They're in their due diligence period. I don't know how long their due diligence period is. It depends on what their purchase and sale agreement was. It could be 120, it could be 180, it could be longer. So as far as I know, we're still in that due diligence period. We haven't seen anything. Well, on that we are. The SID side is anticipating connections and making sure that they've got water, sewer, wastewater reuse and everything. So they're planning for potentials to make sure that everything works as well.
If let's just hypothetically, if they sign an agreement and they're able to sell to them, is there going to be take much time to get connected to that property to get things rolling?
No, because most of the utilities are already out to the east, or almost out to the east side of the estate, which is Pod T. And they're going to be continuing out further to pick up Pod S, which is the orchards. So, because the orchards wastewater will be coming down and out the persimmon connections for wastewater. It would not take for us internally for the city of SID to make those connections. It's not a big deal. But because they're not part of the original DO, they have to go through county traffic, et cetera, the TPS, et cetera, before they can come into us and make sure that all meets the criteria. Part of that TPS study will make sure internally that they meet traffic flows, that traffic flows don't adversely impact any of the roads that are currently built or being built, street lights, signalization, those kind of things will all be taken in because they're not part of the original ones.
Are there any other updates on STA or
Last I heard on ISDF was that they dropped back. They're still working on their financing. They're reworking their business plan. You know, with the international travel and stuff that they had, that's put a serious dent in their progress.
I just had a quick one for Nielsa. I was hoping, when you work on your presentation for the parks, if you could just include a line item in there or a column for special needs. There's a lot of children with special needs. I know there's some special needs parks.
Definitely.
If we can look into that.
All the parks should be inclusive.
Absolutely. And I know there's grants out there for special needs.
Yeah.
But if you make that part of your presentation, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I will include one part, what I, accessible part. Actually, yes, thank you.
We'll move on to public comment. These are on agenda items only. This section of the agenda allows for comments from the public to speak on items only presented on the agenda. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to comment. The public comment card should be completed and returned to the clerk. These items.
Mayor, I received no previous comment cards. However, if we'll give the audience a moment to raise their virtual hand or unmute their telephone devices, you may do so by pressing *6. Please state your name and address. Mayor, we have a comment from Brandy Duggar. Ms. Duggar, please state your address.
Hi, it's 15983 Whippoorwill Circle, Florida.
Thank you.
Honey. Hi, I just had a question because it was inaudible on my end. In regards to the Airbnb, I heard Pam Booker. Is that illegal in the state or the city of Westlake? I could not hear.
You must know if they're illegal, but they're really governed by the HOA dollars.
I do serve on the Hammocks HOA Board of Directors. That's why it caught my attention. It was, like I said, it was just inaudible on my phone. And I do know some cities have made it illegal. So I didn't know if that was gone over or what I missed exactly, if you could clarify.
Sure. If you can follow up with me tomorrow to make sure I understand your question and can give you the citations in the HOA docs where that is. I don't believe you can prohibit them. You can limit them, but you cannot prohibit them. So there are limitations. The HOA docs are a little bit different than what local jurisdictions can do in terms of adopting ordinances to prohibit them. Those actions by local governments have been challenged in the past. So if you'd like to follow up tomorrow, I can have additional conversations with you in regards to this.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, we have additional comment from Alicia Torres. Ms. Torres, please state your address.
Hi, Alicia Torres, 5847 Whippoorwill.
Thank you.
I just had 2 follow-up questions. One, I think, is for Mr. Castle. I'm just curious about item A, the resolution for 2021-01. I just want to clarify, is this designating the parcel of land north of Public for residential?
No, the 01 is the plat for the road.
For the road?
Yes,
Yeah, right. Final plat, Town Center Parkway Southwest.
Correct. That's for the roadway. That's a roadway plat.
Okay.
That goes from the town center, from Seminole Pratt Whitney west to just past the Publix parcel, and it also contains drainage structures and drainage elements that get the stormwater all the way to the M2 canal.
Okay, and that's so construction can begin. That's to help with construction traffic, I presume.
Well, they can access the construction off of Persimmon right now for the public site, but the public site requires the, both roads for ingress and egress for their platted property, since it runs all the way from Town Center Parkway south to Persimmon. They need both ingress and egress points, both on the south of Persimmon as well as north on Town Center Parkway south.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My second question is, it looks like there is a planning and zoning board coming and a community, what was it? Board or committee. And I'm just curious, are these boards or committees, are residents supposed to fill these, whatever
Yes.
they are, and how are they different? I'm a little confused. Thank you very much. The one board, Councilman Connor will take on that one, and I'll address the other one.
Yeah, so the new board, the community outreach or name to be determined, will be all residents. And it'll basically liaison between the council and these representatives of the residents to just increase communication and adapt what's going on.
And the other one is the additional individual to serve on the planning and zoning board, which was approved by council 3 or 4 months ago, something like that. And now we'll get around to, we got a little sidetracked now, getting around to actually appointing an individual to serve on that. So the planning and zoning board will be consisting of the council plus the alternate of the one resident. Because right now you have 2 residents on the planning and zoning board in the vestiture of Councilman O'Connor and Councilman Patrick Paul. That would give you 3 residents potentially on that board, as well as the other 3 councilmen. But the alternate would only serve if one of the other councilmen could not make the P&Z meeting. So you would still have a matter of 5 P&Z, so that you would not get a deadlock vote from the P&Z board. You always have to have an oddball member.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mayor, if we'll give the audience additional time to raise their virtual hand. If you have a comment, please raise your virtual hand or unmute your device. If you're on a telephone, please press *6. Mayor, I see no additional comments.
Thank you. Okay, the last item, our next meeting is February 8th, and that's subject to change in the council, but that's tentatively the schedule right now, February 8th, 6:30, and there's nothing further. Motion adjourned. We'll adjourn at 8:46 p.m. Bye.